Hello. Today we're going to be talking about research methods in psychology. And jumping in, we're going to be talking about the survey. A survey is a technique used for obtaining the self-reported attitudes or behavior of a particular group or a population. When writing questions for surveys, be careful about wording effects. This may affect the answer that the person gives on the actual survey. You also want to use random sampling so that everyone in the population has an equal chance of participating in the survey. And now we're going to talk about correlation. Correlation is a measure of the extent to which two factors vary together, and thus how well either factor predicts the other. The correlation coefficient, known as R, is the statistical index of the relationship between two things, ranging from -1 to +1. The direction of the correlation is determined by the sign, whereas the strength of the correlation is determined by the value. A correlation is positive if two sets of scores tend to rise or fall together. Conversely, a negative correlation shows an inverse relationship. When dealing with correlation, be careful about illusory correlation, the perception of a relationship where none exists. And as a general rule of thumb, correlation does not mean causation. Next up, experimentation. An experiment is a research method in which an investigator manipulates one or more factors to observe the effects on some behavior or mental process. Just like surveys use random sampling, experiments use random assignment to assign participants into different groups. If the study is using a double-blind procedure, neither the participants nor the research assistants collecting the data will know which group is receiving the treatment. A double-blind procedure reduces the chance for the placebo effect to happen. The placebo effect is an experimental result caused by expectations alone. Participants in the experiment will either be put in the experimental group or the control group. The experimental group is the group that is exposed to the treatment, whereas the control group is the one that is not exposed to the treatment. When working with variables, remember the statement, they are testing the effects of blank on blank. The first blank is filled with the independent variable, where the second blank is filled with the dependent variable. The independent variable is the experimental factor that is manipulated, the variable whose effects is being studied. The dependent variable is the outcome factor, the variable that may change in response to the manipulations of the independent variable. Now let's talk about describing data with simple statistics. There are three measures of central tendency: mean, median, and mode. Mean is the arithmetic average of a distribution, attained by adding the scores and then dividing by the number of scores. Median is the middle score of a distribution. Half of the scores are above it and half are below it. Finally, mode is the most frequently occurring score or scores in a distribution. There are two measures of variation: range and standard deviation. Range is the difference between the highest and the lowest scores in a distribution, and standard deviation is a computed measure of how much scores vary around the mean score. The normal curve is a symmetrical bell-shaped curve that describes the distribution of many types of data. Most of the scores fall near the mean. 6 to 8% of it falls within one standard deviation, and fewer near the extremes. Our final topic is ethics in research. There are 4 ethical principles that psychologists are urged to use. They are to obtain the informed consent of potential participants, protect them from harm and discomfort, treat information about individual participants confidentially, and fully debrief people after the experiment. It is important that researchers obtain informed consent because this tells the researcher that participants wish to participate. It is also important that there is a debriefing period after the experiment so that experimenters can explain the nature of the study, including its purpose and any deceptions to the participants. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you learned something new. This has been Research Methods in Psychology.
Ba 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 banana ba 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 banana banana.